What's up, you guys? It's 2Bricks, and I have a pretty substantial update here to my Microfleet series that draws from a few different sources, so it's sort of a combination video, but it's themed around the Clone Wars, and I'm kind of taking from a bunch of different iterations of different Star Wars media that has covered this topic. So here on the left we have the ships that are going to be from the 2D animated Clone Wars shorts from 2003 and I think 2004. Those are produced for the Cartoon Network by Genndy Tartakovsky, who has done other really iconic 2D animated shows like Samurai Jack and many others. So that's going to be really fun. So we're going to be checking those out. These two here are from the movies. This one's from episode 2, and I think it was also in episode 3. And this is a Wookiee catamaran, which is from episode 3 as well. And as you guys know, the Clone Wars began at the tail end of episode 2 and finished at the beginning of episode 3. So that's fair game in my book. And then these two right here, this is the police gunship and the Cormac class starfighter. Those are from the CG 2008 7-season running Clone Wars CG animated show. So yeah, lots of different eras that we're pulling from. So I'm really excited to show you guys each of these and their unique kind of aspects and traits, and show you what they bring to the universe of Star Wars. So let's check it out. So first up we have Anakin Skywalker's Azure Angel, which is a heavily modified Delta 7 Aethersprite Jedi Starfighter, which is the one you can see here that Obi-Wan pilots from Attack of the Clones. And of course, Obi-Wan, ever the Trollmaster, has once again has the high ground over Anakin. And yeah, his ship is the standard kind of out-of-the-box version, which is this triangular wedge shape, which I think actually looks pretty cool. But then, you know, Anakin went to town in the 2D animated Clone Wars. Anyway, he didn't have this one in the CG one. But he went to town and made his own version of this that had these massive engines at the front, had this blue and white kind of striped color scheme, which is kind of similar to Plo Koon's Delta 7. And then he had these wings off to the side that he'd added in, and also some additional cannons as well. So this was a really, really heavily Anakinized version of this ship, and then, you know, it ended up getting destroyed when he first fought Asajj Ventress. So that could explain why we don't see it if you do still consider the 2D animated Clone Wars show to be canon. You know, it got destroyed, so that's why it didn't show up in the CG one. So yeah, there you go. So there is Anakin's Azure Angel. I think this one takes the new record for the most number of minifig hands used. I have 5 in this one, so yeah, for at least for such a small ship, it's really reliant on that. But you know, what can you do at this tiny scale if you're trying to create something super specific? So there is Anakin's modified Delta 7, the Azure Angel. Next up, and also from the 2D Clone Wars shorts, I have the Munilist 10 modified version of an LA-AT gunship. That is a standard Republic gunship. Here we have the kind of stock color scheme, but this was modified for this specialist unit of ARC troopers that went to confront General Grievous the first time that we ever got to see him on screen, which was really cool. And they have this color scheme, and I'm trying to just represent it here as much as possible, but essentially they turned the front section of their ship into the mouth of a wampa, and then they gave it this cool blue and white striped color scheme up here as well. So the build is very, very similar. There's only a couple of different parts in here where because LEGO made these finger hinge plates in blue, I was able to connect them in at a different point, whereas they did not make them in the dark red. So I had to just slightly change up the configuration of how the plates are to get the cockpits to line up and be at the same height. So just a little bit of tweaking in there. But I actually like how this works better. Initially, I had wanted the design to be this way, where this plate would be the dark red, but you know, it's just not possible. But yeah, I really like that I have this version in here, so I can at least represent my idea of the original design in a more kind of you know, solid way. And then I have the little tooth plates up here to just represent where the white stripes kind of cut into the blue along the side of the wings. And then they also have these kind of blacked out designs over there, the laser turrets on this one. So I'm not sure, you know, why that exists that way, but that's how it is in the show. So I went ahead and replicated that here. And I think that these two look really, really great next to each other. I think the designers of you know, the 2D animated show did such an amazing job of making an already iconic ship even cooler, and I think part of the enduring charm of the LA-AT in the fan community is because of this original recolor that just, it was just such a fun version of it. And that original introduction of General Grievous before his character really got finalized was so epic, and I think that was really, really memorable to a lot of Star Wars fans. So there we go. There is the modified LAAT belonging to the Munilist 10. Next up here I have the Coruscant Police gunship. This is actually a descendant of the LAAT gunship, the kind of regular, workhorse vehicle of the Republic. This is like a sort of a demilitarized civilian use version of it, where it's been scaled down and has these additional kind of like, almost like TIE style wings that come off to the bottom here, and then these two on the top. But yeah, it's essentially just a troop carrying device, like something like you'd see modern cops today rolling around in SWAT vehicles. I think this is kind of the Star Wars equivalent of that. And of course this is super pivotal to the story of Ahsoka, because when she gets accused of murder falsely, and Ahsoka's kind of hiding out in the Coruscant underworld, she's being chased by these, and dozens and dozens of these, and it's a very traumatizing experience for her, and it kind of helps push her towards leaving the Jedi Order. So yeah, this is like an important story point vehicle to have, and I'm really happy to be able to include it in the fleet. So I'll just take this off the stand and show you guys what it's all about. So I just have this little gun off to the back here, which I use to clip in the stand, as you could see there. And then I have a couple of different ways of attaching these. There's actually two gun emplacements at the front here, and then the wings are kind of off to the side of that. And then these actually do, in-universe, rotate in when the thing is coming in for a landing. So it would just, just kind of sit flat like this. But usually when you see the thing, it's in action, and these are sort of deployed off to the side. So yeah, you can adjust the angle of these however you like. I tend to have them just poked in a little bit, just a little bit, so that it kind of, I don't know, it has like a little bit more of an aggressive look, I think, if they're angled in slightly. And then yeah, these top ones don't really move around too much. You can set the angle of those a little bit to the side, but I think for me, I like to leave those pretty much facing upwards. I'm not exactly sure what the function of those is, but those are kind of prominent double wings that I'm representing with this clip piece that stick out forward, and then there's this like very menacing red cockpit. And in universe, this thing kind of like slopes back in a little bit, but I felt like using a second red cheese wedge, it didn't give it quite the exact angle that I wanted, because the cockpit does sort of angle tilt forward slightly. So I think having it be having it be sloped on the bottom and then flat on the top is the closest I could get to what I wanted to see out of that shape. So yeah, really, really simplistic design on this one. Just has one of these bricks with the 1x2 brick with the double studs on both sides, and then everything just kind of plugs into that, and you can kind of see how I've achieved this design. So yeah, really easy one to replicate if you guys are interested in doing so for your own micro fleets. And there it is. There is the modified LAAT, I think it's called the LAAT-I police gunship for Coruscant. And here's a funny little one. This is the homing spider droid belonging to the forces of the Separatists. This one was, I believe, seen in the battle of, in the first battle of Geonosis in episode 2, I think. And these have become fairly commonly known amongst LEGO fans. It's also been made into a LEGO set several times. And this one has a kind of dual, like there's a small radar dish thing on the top and then a large dish on the bottom. And I believe both of those are actually cannons. And then it has these legs that are kind of posable, and you can, on my one, you can replicate that by just sort of splaying them out like this, and it can sort of wobble along the battlefield like that. Yeah, and then this one's just a little bit large. I think it should probably be 2.5 studs tall instead of 3 studs tall as it is now. But it's close enough where I'm happy with the representation of it. I think for my scale, it's so tricky to get these smaller vehicles to feel right. So anytime that I can crack it where I can instantly recognize what I'm looking at, then I'm happy. So just to give you a sense of just a couple of other little Separatist things here. We have the snail droid, and this is the Vulture starfighter in here. So, I think it scales pretty well to my other Separatist things. Oh, I have the Hailfire droid in here too. So I think I think it works pretty well, and I think it's. I definitely want to bulk up my separatist forces. Like, there's so many that I wanted to do that are just so tiny, like the Tridroid and a couple other ones that are just like really the Tridroid Starfighter, sorry, and yeah, they're just awkwardly tiny. The separatist forces had small stuff. I don't know, it's weird, but yeah, this is I'm pretty happy with how this one turned out. So at least there's one more to add to the fleet. And here we have the Wookiee Catamaran, which is a really interesting and strange addition to my micro fleet, because I think it is the first like traditional boat structure that I have. This is a flying catamaran that has two really large, sort of almost Viking longboat sized canoes that are connected with two pontoons to this central section where there's also these two engines off to the side. And then also there's a central section here with these flapping wings that kind of, I think these actually provide most of the helicopter-like support for this thing to be in the air, and then I think these engines provide forward thrust. I believe that's how it's supposed to work anyway, but LEGO actually did give us a Wookiee Catamaran set, but it was a different iteration or a different version of a Wookiee Catamaran that wasn't this exact model. This is a much larger one that you guys can see in the Battle of Kashyyyk. If you look up in episode 3, you see these flying in along with some much smaller craft that are just single Wookiee fighters that kind of act as support craft to this larger one, which I guess is sort of like a troop carrier, because I believe it carries like 6 Wookiees in each side. So yeah, it's a pretty sizable troop deployment vehicle, and it's a really weird one because it there's some elements to it that are kind of recognizable. Like, I think you can recognize the catamaran design to it, like with the two pontoons and everything. But then it's also just so weird looking with all this stuff going on in the middle. So it's a really interesting one, and I think I've been wanting to do something Kashyyyk related for a while. I said in the last Clone Wars video that I really enjoyed doing the Wookiee gunship, and I think just more Wookiee stuff is always fun for me. So yeah, definitely happy to have that one amongst the rest of the fleet. And here we have the CR-20 troop carrier, which is again from the 2D Clone Wars shorts. This is like the punchline of a joke to me. Essentially, what do you get if you cross a Consulate class cruiser and a sandcrawler? You get this guy. And I think that the look of this is so cartoony and so iconic to this show that it actually brings up a lot of nostalgia for people. I know it does for me. And I posted a slightly earlier version of this design on Instagram, and I know that a lot of people were expressing a lot of nostalgia for this craft. So I'm really excited to show it to you guys, but I just wanted to give you the context of placing it next to a sandcrawler and the Consulate class, so you can kind of see the two main design inspirations for it. But yeah, let's take a look at the actual ship. All right, so here it is. I absolutely love the style that Genndy Tartakovsky brought to the Clone Wars era with his kind of Samurai Jack inspired, very angular, very cartoony, you know, super Cartoon Network looking designs for Star Wars ships. And this is one of the new ones that we got for the show that just really felt like such an exaggerated form, and it almost doesn't look like a Star Wars ship, but it absolutely definitely does at the same time. So I think that's really fun. And this one has we only see it for basically one scene where Anakin lands on Yavin 4, and Obi-Wan has sent the troops to kind of safeguard him because Anakin went off without permission again. And so yeah, Obi-Wan tried to send these guys to back him up. So they come spilling out of the front of this thing. There's like 200 troops or something, and they all go and they come down here, and it's a pretty funny little scene. And Anakin's miffed that Obi-Wan doesn't trust him and send all these troops down. So I saw some other versions of kind of online designs where we didn't get to see this in the show, I don't think, but these doors also open up. So I decided to just reflect that in here, just in case that's canonically something it should be able to do. So I think they could load up, much larger vehicles, at least taller ones, into here, and then just have a ton of troops as well. So I think that's really cool. So I want to show you guys some of the close-up details of this. I really like the way that I got the landing gear to work. It's a very specific shape, and it just has this nice kind of piston look to it with the minifigure hands and the pneumatic T-bars. I just think that really captures what that looks and feels like. I'll give you guys a look at the inside of it with the doors open again. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with how all of that turned out. I think that the the overall shaping and the form of this really accurately reflects what we see in the show. And then these kind of like front greebly details here, where this has like a blue light that would be inside of it. And then just getting the yellow windshield, or the cockpit thing here, which kind of even more closely resembles the Sandcrawler with the yellow, which I really like. And then yeah, the little roller skate pieces down here represent a double mounted laser gun that comes off of the bottom of this. And then we have the classic sort of cutout section here, the part that sticks out with the little greebly details in between. Very, very reminiscent of like the Tantive V4 and other cruisers of this type. And then up here I have the two airlocks, which are just positioned really high on this, kind of like awkwardly high, but I still sort of like the way that is, because it's just a little bit different from the usual, where the docking bay would be sort of nestled in between this little gap. And it has a little bit of the wing, and obviously coming to the 3 engines here. I tried to make the tolerances in here as tight as possible, just using any kind of half stud offsets, and connecting the studs in here to try to minimize that gap as much as possible. So I really like how this all came out. And then very simple representation for the back here for the engine glow, just using these rounded upside down tiles. So I think this one turned out really nice, and I just have this one minifig hand up here to just kind of continue this shape down, where it's just sort of this white triangular shape back here that is this dish mount. So I think that all works out really well, and I borrowed these. This is Anakin and Obi-Wan's Jedi Starfighter insignia. I just stole those for the Republic insignia on here, so I think that all works out really, really nicely. I actually really love this ship, and it's one of my new favorite additions to the fleet, so super duper happy to have it. So there we go, the CR-20 Troop Carrier. Now here's a ship that a lot of you guys may not even know what this is when you're looking at it, but if I turn it to the side, I think you may get a slightly better sense of what you're looking at. This was from the super epic episode where Mace Windu is on a grassy planet all by himself, facing down thousands and thousands of droids. I mean, he has clone troopers backing him up, but this thing shows up and just hovers over the entire battlefield and deploys this gigantic, like, bizarre piston thing, which I have replicated here using this Technic pin that just drops out. This piston comes down and just smashes into the ground and just creates this huge shockwave that just decimates all of the troops. And yeah, Mace Windu is left to fight all the droids by himself, and to actually take on this entire giant floating palace thing by himself. So in the show, they gave us basically this angle a bunch of times, and then we got to see it one time from the top where it's deploying the piston. You can kind of see the explosion underneath. So you got to see the top view of this, and I never really took that in. I never really understood, or sort of, it never sunk in with me that this had this shape up here, which is obviously very, very iconic to the troop carrier, the what is that thing called? The C997, you know what I mean, the droid carrier, the one that I have in my fleet, but it's obviously a much, much more scaled down version of that. And I also didn't realize how, I guess, small relatively this is. If you look at it next to a Sandcrawler, you can see it's like, it's, you guys I think probably have a pretty good idea of how big the Sandcrawler is, and if you stack these up, it's basically like 2 Sandcrawlers high. And then it's powered by these engines down here that are sort of these repulsor engines that point off at 45 degrees. And I just cover this thing in sort of greebly details that are just kind of randomized, because the actual ship has this sort of very pointy, randomized look to it. So I have like a minifig hand back here, just giving a little bit of a spiky detail and some of these clips to just create that look. Because Genndy Tartakovsky loves to have those sort of randomized kind of needly details poking out of the side of his evil ships. It sort of just evokes that nasty, pointy feel. I don't know, that just that unpleasant feel that you don't want to have. So these side sections are just very simply created with hinging sections, and they just hinge in two places, and it just sits on there and just gravity holds it in place. And then you can see in here that I just have a very simple multicolored little area in here to just house that piston, and the piston itself is just held in place by having a really simple, let's see, can I open this up and show you? Oh, I guess you can't really see it, but the piston just plugs into a plate in here that's a, oops, I need to open this all the way. It's a plate that, oh, there we go, one of these bracket kind of things in here, and then that pin just hooks under there and just holds it up when it's when it's deployed. So really, really simple. I just wanted to be able to capture that look, and I think again that just really iconic, that drop and that huge seismic explosion of dust is a really iconic thing to the Clone Wars series, and a lot of people remember that scene because Mace Windu's just wrecking shop in that episode. So really, really cool, and definitely fun to have in the fleet, even if it's probably going to raise a lot of eyebrows for people who see it initially, and I'll have to explain what it is, but once you get it, you're like, oh, yeah, that one. So yeah, this is the super bizarre seismic tank belonging to the Trade Federation. Oh, and I guess I should just point out really quick too, this is the bridge up here. It's this large red windowed section, and then all these kind of red windows, I guess, are supposed to be areas where the droids can look out of, but yeah. There we go. There is the droid Trade Federation seismic tank. Next up we have the Comarch class starfighter, which is spelled really, really difficultly, and it's really difficult to say. This is the one that belongs to Pre Vizsla, the kind of main antagonist of Season 3 of the Clone Wars, as far as the whole kind of Mandalorian arc goes. He's the leader of Death Watch, and he has this absolutely gigantic, what they call a starfighter, but it's really like a Corvette scale. Sorry, it has moving features, so I'm having trouble just keeping it all together, but it transforms a whole bunch. I'll show you guys that in a second. But yeah, this thing is absolutely ginormous, and it kind of shares a lot of design influences from, or I guess it influenced the design of a lot of other ships in the Star Wars galaxy. I think I can definitely see some U-wing in there, especially with the front kind of nose-mounted cannons, the color scheme obviously, the fact that it has these huge wings that can jut forward. And then also it reminds me a lot of the Stinger Mantis from Fallen Order. So I like that about it because it's got this kind of rotating design feature to it. So I'll just show you guys how that looks. So we just flip the whole cockpit around, and it comes in the front here. And this is the fighter mode, I guess, when it's engaging with the enemy. This would be how it looks. So I have the wings independently movable so that I can rotate the cockpit and the wings, and so I'm just using Technic pins to attach these, so they're kind of loose and they just sort of go where they will. But it was really important to me to be able to stand this up, just like in the show, on just the wings, and the tension that exists within those Technic pins is enough to hold up the whole front end without any need for additional landing gear or anything like that. The Lego set that we got of this did have front landing gear, but I don't think I saw that in the show. I was looking out for it as I was doing my Clone Wars rewatch, and I didn't see any front landing gear, but I could be mistaken on that. But I think that it just looks like this. So there's these two cannons at the back that are mounted above and below this, what I think is the entrance ramp kind of hatch that opens up, and then the crew boards from back here. And then yeah, this cylindrical section in the middle that kind of allows everything to swivel is really fun. And then when this is in like hyperspace, just sort of traveling and not in combat mode, it sits in this configuration with the wings up, and that's one of the things that really reminded me of the Stinger Mantis, is just how much the wings move around depending on what the ship is doing. Let me just pull this out a little bit. Sorry, give you guys a better look at it. Yeah, so depending on what this thing is doing, it just has the whole different kind of configuration to it. So very Stinger Mantis-esque, I think. Actually, let me show you guys the Stinger Mantis in comparison. This is shockingly bigger than that, so hold on one second. So side by side, you can see the Stinger Mantis is dwarfed by the Comarch class, and even, if you guys have played the game and you remember running around and jumping in the ship and flying away and seeing this massive sail-like wing off in the distance, when you're on the other side of the map, you can always look over and see your ship in the distance because of this huge wing. Just think about that, and then think about this guy sitting next to it and just absolutely dominating, towering over that. So I think that's pretty cool. The body is about the same dimension as the Stinger Mantis, so I would imagine that there's quite a bit of room in here for the crew to move around, and probably several different rooms below decks here. This probably has 2 or maybe even 3 decks. No, I think it's probably 2, because this is pretty narrow from the side. So yeah, and then obviously there's a cockpit up here for when they're in battle. So Yeah, I think this one's really, really fun. The whole Mandalorian culture is explored really thoroughly in Clone Wars and Rebels, and of course now The Mandalorian. So I think this was definitely a must for the fleet. For me, I wanted to start doing more Mandalorian stuff. Let me just put it around this way so we don't look at the underside of plates. Much nicer. And I like that I was able to do that where you can flip around the cockpit to be on either side, so I think that's cool. Oh, and I never showed you guys the engines back here. Really quick, here are the engines. Nothing too fancy, just brick built slopes with some trans cylinders here, the trans yellow cylinders in the middle. So there we go. Yeah, and then when we first see Death Watch, the group that these ships are flown by, these ships are just kind of parked here like this in the background. There's a couple of them, and they're just absolutely towering over these little structures. There's like houses or tents or something like that in the foreground, and it's really funny how ginormous their ships are in comparison to where they actually are living. So yeah, I think that's fun. The color scheme on this one was pretty tricky to capture because of the angles of these white stripes in here, and then the gray. I wasn't sure because I've seen a couple of different versions of artwork of this where it either doesn't have the gray or it has more blue and less gray or no gray at all. So I'm not exactly sure. I kind of went with a middle of the road approach based off of the different versions of it that I saw that I liked. And then, I really I had a fun time figuring out exactly how to get this body to be able to swivel through and just match with the the kind of gaps that the wings have, shapes of that, and then getting the body to kind of conform to that. This mostly sideways built body, kind of has a right ways up central core, and then the whole sides are built and attached on there. So that was really fun, and I think that it looks pretty sleek. And I do wish that I could make it where the wings are attached together, and then the cockpit is attached together, where the front and back sections will both go with it. But I don't really think that there is a way to do that. So if I did want to get these wings, I'd have an axle that kind of runs right the way through like that, and I would just attach the wings, and then the front and back cockpit sections would just have to be independently free-floating. But I don't know. I'm pretty happy with it as is right now, and on display I think it looks decently cool, and it doesn't really, the wings being independent from each other doesn't really bother anything or break anything, so I think I'll probably just leave it as is for now. But yeah, I'm really, really happy with this, and Pre Vizsla was a really cool character and definitely had a lot of impact on the show, and changed a lot of kind of the course of galactic history with his antics with the Death Watch, and we'll probably get to see a little bit more of that, the kind of ripple effect of his gang through The Mandalorian, because Death Watch is somehow involved with the main character and his shady past. So I'm sure we'll get to see more of that in season 2. So that'll be really cool. And I really like this iteration of it. And later on in the show, after Pre Vizsla's death, spoiler alert, Darth Maul takes this ship over and kind of repaints it in his black and gray and black, red, and gray color scheme. And that's something that I thought about. Like, do I want to have this classic original owner color scheme, or do I want to go with the Darth Maul skin? But I think I like this one better, and so I'm just going to keep it as this for now. Down the line, if I'm really running dry of things that I want to build, I may end up doing a separate Darth Maul-ified version of it, but we'll see. Yeah, so there is the Cormorant. That's so difficult to say. Pre Vizsla's Mandalorian Starfighter. Oh, and just really quick as well, there is a smaller version of this. There are 2 official sizes that are given for these class of ships. So I went ahead and built the bigger one because I think it's more imposing and kind of just cooler to look at alongside all the rest of my ships. But there is actually a smaller variant of it as well, and there are other kind of similarly designed kind of wing up ships like this from the Mandalorian culture that I haven't got to as well. But eventually I will get them all in there. So yeah, that's the beauty of the fleet. It just keeps on growing. So yeah, there is Pre Vizsla's Mandalorian Starfighter. And then last thing to show you with this really quick, I just have a really simple little stand here that I've made to accommodate this, where I'm just stacking up a couple of plates, and I'm just supporting the wings with these plates here that aren't attached with any studs, because the way that these wings are attached is very complex, and there's no good one-to-one stud relationship between the undersides of these sections here. So essentially I just have to plug it into the middle and then prop up the wings with some tiles under there. So that works out okay, decently well, I think, for my purposes, for just displaying this anyway. And I wanted to be able to have a second option for you know, not wearing out the friction in these Technic pins by having it stand you know, supporting the whole weight of the front the whole time. So yeah, that's that. Just a quick little addendum. There you guys go. I hope that you enjoyed taking a look at this weird collection of vehicles, kind of probably my most randomized episode so far, and you know, at least sticking to the theme of Clone Wars. It's got some kind of a connective through line to it, but what a weird collection of different ships with different functions and totally different aesthetics. I guess there's a lot of blue. You could say that. That's a theme. There's a lot of blue craft in here, but yeah, I'm really enjoying, like I said in the previous video, having the freedom to kind of explore some of the weirder aspects and the stranger corners of the Star Wars universe that I haven't really had the chance to look at yet, and so this has been really fun. I hope you guys are enjoying it. I know that sometimes when there's things that you might not recognize as much, maybe there's not as much of a kind of connection to it, especially for kids who grew up more so watching the CG Clone Wars. They may not have that same attachment to the 2D stuff. So let me know what you guys think down in the description. Did you enjoy seeing this collection of vehicles, and do you want to see more weird stuff? Do you guys want to see more you know, no longer canon stuff? There's plenty of you know, EU kind of decanonized Legends material that I can pull from. Of course, I also have the Old Republic, which I've just recently started getting into as well. So there's so many different aspects and directions to go. Star Wars is such a gigantic property with so many thousands of designs floating around for any number of things. So there's always new stuff to adapt. So yeah, I'm just curious what you guys are curious in seeing. It may not necessarily influence exactly the decision of where I decide to go next. It's just nice to hear you guys' thoughts on those things. So yeah, thank you guys again for watching. If you made it to this point, I really appreciate it. Please do like and subscribe, because like I mentioned before, I will be making that incredible Venator class Star Destroyer to top off the fleet, be the kind of cherry on top of this gigantic collection once I do reach that 100,000 subscriber mark. So get all your friends over here and get them subscribed to 2Bricks. Alright you guys, so I'll see you on the next one. Thanks again for watching, and may the Force be with you.